Well, thank you very, very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll just start talking about, I guess, why I'm here. It all started when I was a child. I noticed that I had some kind of difference between me and my friends. I noticed that my friends could differentiate colors better than me, so I thought there was some kind of problem with me. I thought maybe I had a problem learning the colors, so we went to the doctor, and the doctor said, he's just colorblind. And then I just went back to school, but I noticed that it wasn't normal colorblind, as I was confusing all colors. So we went back to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, he's just very, very colorblind. But so we just changed doctor, and we went to a specialist, and then the specialist said, oh, he's completely colorblind. He has achromatism, so he doesn't see color at all. So he's not confusing colors, it's just that he's never seen color. So when I was 11, I realized that I had never seen color and that I had grown up in a school where I was learning color, but I wasn't seeing it. So I learned that the sky was blue, that the grass was gray, but I never realized that my eyes and my brain could not perceive color. So from the age of 11, I started to wonder what color was, because it's really, really difficult to understand what color is if you've never seen it. I asked people what is blue, and then they started describing this strange thing. So when you ask someone what is blue, they just say words, adjectives, that it seems like they're describing someone or a person. So it didn't make sense. So I always wanted to perceive color. I wanted to extend my senses and perceive color, but it was not possible. There was no way of perceiving color. So I just tried to study more about color, and I read physically what color was to try to sense or understand color better, but it wasn't the same. I felt that I was missing out something. And many people ask me, well, if you see in black and white, why can't you just live in black and white and ignore color? But it's just impossible to ignore color, because color is an extremely popular and social element. It's impossible to ignore that color exists. So my reason why I wanted to perceive color was not because I wanted to perceive the beauty of red or the beauty of blue. It's just because color is an extremely social element. So things like yellow pages, Bluetooth, green peas, Red Cross, orange, things that contain the word of color, that every day of my life I was aware that color existed, and this really annoyed me. There's also the green card, Pink Panther, Red Bull, Blue Tag, Yellow Submarine, Brown Sugar, James Brown is even in a surname. So I was reminded every day that color existed. Also, there's this huge country called Greenland, so, which is probably not even green. And then it's also very annoying when color is used as a code. So hot water, cold water, I need to test both taps to know which one's which. Also when it's used as a map code. This is just a simple map, but if I go to Tokyo, I can get easily lost, because if the map is just based in color, then it doesn't make much sense. And then there's this strange situation. So 3 completely different countries sharing exactly the same flag, which is very romantic, I guess, but it can be very confusing. And then it's also very annoying when color is used to describe things or people. So if someone asked me, have you seen a man with ginger hair, blue eyes, and dressed in pink? I would have absolutely no idea, because there's no other information other than the man has hair, that he has eyes, and that he's not naked. So actually, so that's the main reason why I actually wanted to study something that had no color. So I studied music, and I thought, well, piano. Piano is a black and white instrument. It will have no color. And then when I started to study music, I realized that the teacher was also using color to describe some kind of timbre, or to describe some kind of sound. He was using color, so you can hear the color of this music. And there's also interested in, I tried to find why was he doing this. And I realized that actually color and sound have actually been united for many, many centuries. There's been theories that, like Newton's theory, that relates the frequencies of color with frequencies of sound. And I found this actually quite interesting, because I could sense sound. So if there was a relationship between color and sound, then maybe through sound I would be able to perceive color. So I started to look what theories there were, and I realized that all the theories that physicians and artists made had no relation between them. Each person related color to a different note, so there was no, I didn't know which scale was the right one. So I didn't know which one to follow, so I just thought that maybe there wasn't a pure scale that related color to sound. And when I was studying music, I just went to a lecture one day given by Adam Montandon, and the lecture was about cybernetics, which was something that had nothing to do with music, but I just went to the talk, and Adam was talking about how technology could be used to extend people's senses, how you could use cybernetics to create new senses and to extend perception. So I was suddenly very interested in technology and cybernetics, so I went to him and I said, do you think it would be possible to create something so I could extend my senses and perceive color? And he said, sure, let's start a project. So we began this project, and he asked me, how would you like to perceive color? And we thought that sound would be the best way to perceive color, because there's this relationship between color and sound. Both color and sound are frequencies, but color is a light frequency and sound is an audio frequency. So the aim was to create something that would allow me to hear the colors in front of me. And the first prototype was almost 10 years ago, and it was basically a camera that would sense the frequency of the color in front of me. It would send this to a 5-kilo computer that I wore on a back, and then the software in the computer would transpose the light frequencies to sound frequencies that I would hear through headphones. So this is what I used 10 years ago for the first time, and this allowed me to hear 6 colors, like red, the sound of red, the sound of orange, the sound of yellow, and just the main 6 colors. And for the first time, I was able to sense color without having to ask people. So I memorized the name of each color, I memorized the sound of each color, and then when I heard a specific sound, I said the name of the color. And it became like a tool, but after some time, because I decided to wear it permanently, this information became a perception. I didn't have to think about the notes. It just became automatic. When I heard the sound, I knew it was red. When I heard another sound, I knew it was blue. And then after some time, it actually became a feeling. I started to have favorite notes, so favorite colors. And it became an extension of my senses. And yeah, when my brain got used to the 6 colors, we just added more colors to the software, to 12 colors. And then when my brain got used to those 12 colors, we added 12 more to 24, then 48, then more than 100, then 200, then 300, until we got to 360 different colors, 360 different notes, one for each degree of a color wheel. So this was in 2007 when I got to these 360 microtones, and now I'll play all of them. And it starts here. Oh, sorry. I didn't plug this. So yeah, you'll start hearing color. It's sine waves, so it's just pure sine waves, and it's electronic sound, but it might be, yeah, here. So now you're hearing 30 microtones from F to F sharp. That is going from red to F. Oh, from red to orange, sorry. So at the beginning, perceiving this constantly, because there's color everywhere, was very annoying, because it's a new sound input and it's constant, because there's color absolutely everywhere. So I had huge headaches the first few days, and also my ears blocked because I was using headphones at the start, so my body rejected this constant sound. And the other secondary effect was a backache because of the 5-kilo computer. So So I guess this is becoming annoying now for many of you. It's like torture. But yeah, so if someone is wearing violet, it can be quite, it really stands out. Violet and the high frequency colors stand out more than the reds or the oranges. So it goes on. So this allows me to hear, to perceive hue, but color is more than hue. Color also has saturation levels. So I was able to perceive hues with different notes, with different semitones, but I wasn't able to perceive if the color was very vivid or dull. So we added, in 2007, Peter Cachet added different volume levels depending on the saturation level. So if I have a very bright pink, I will hear it in a louder volume than a dull pink. And this allows me to perceive both saturation and hue, and then light, which is the third property of color, I can see. So if I see a light object and I hear red, then it's pink. Or if I hear yellow, but the object is very dark, then it's probably brown. So this is how I perceive color, through three different channels, and this combination of these three properties gives me the perception of color. Now, the headsets, I kept modifying the way to wear the electronic eye because it wasn't comfortable. The first thing I did was actually to cut the headphones in half so that I could hear people as well, because I was only hearing color at the beginning. So this allowed me to hear color on one side and people the other side. But this wasn't good enough. So also the computer, 5 kilo computer, we reduced it to a 3 kilo computer, then to a 1 kilo computer that I wore attached to my body. And then the biggest change was in 2010 when I stopped using a computer and I started to use a chip. And I stopped using headphones and I started to use bone conduction. So we have this property that bone can transmit sound. So we could all use bone as a sound conductor, not only as a structure of the body. So I decided to start using my bone to hear colors in order to differentiate better what are audio sounds and visual sounds. So I hear visual sounds through bone conduction and audio sounds through air conduction. And this makes a huge difference between both, so I don't get mixed up now. And also, having a chip installed at the back of my head means that I don't need to carry a computer. So now, this is a color sensor that goes to a chip, and then the chip is explanted and it's pressuring the bone, so then I hear the colors directly through bone conduction. Now, there's more changes to it, so I don't want to have this pressure to the bone. I want to have it inside the bone. So I went to a bioethical committee 2 years ago and presented this as a possible operation to have it inside the bone. And then finally the bioethical committee earlier this year said yes, so the operation has been approved. And now we've finished designing the new antenna, which will go inside the bone. And actually next Tuesday I'm meeting the surgeon, so that we'll have a date for the first antenna implant that will happen in Barcelona, probably before Christmas. And this will probably be the end of all this 10-year process, and it will allow other people in the world to also have antennas for whatever reason they want. Antennas can be used to perceive color through sound conduction, but it could be used for perceiving other things, which I'll talk afterwards. The next step after the implant is to have a human battery. Now I still depend on electricity. I need to plug myself every 3 or 4 days. So there's like a USB output that allows me to charge the electronic eye. So I don't want to depend on external energy. I don't even want to depend on solar energy. I want to depend on my own energy. So I want to design this turbine inside the blood vessel that will charge the chip so that I don't need to depend on external energy. Because our body is already generating energy, not only through blood circulation, but also you could charge through the energy of your own brain, or also it could be kinetic energy. So after some months of hearing color, I felt that there was no difference anymore between the software and my brain, because I had been using it for so long that I started to feel that the software was a normal part of my body. It was an extension of my senses, an extension of my brain. And I especially felt like this when I started to dream in color. So one day I woke up and I realized that in my dreams I had been hearing these electronic sounds. So if I dreamt of the sky, then my brain created C#, an electronic C#, because the sky is usually C#. And then I started to realize that I was dreaming in color. And that's when I strongly felt this connection between the cybernetics and my organism. So this union between cybernetics and organism defined as cyborg, this union between these two elements. And since then, I don't feel the difference between the software and my brain. And I feel that the antenna is not something that I'm wearing, and it's not something that I'm using. It's a part of my body. So I don't feel that I'm using technology or wearing technology. I feel that I am technology. And this is a very specific sense that it only happens if you wear technology permanently for a long period of time. Now, I had a problem with this because I wasn't allowed to renew my passport in 2004, because there's a law that says that you're not allowed to wear any electronic equipment on passport photos. So I appeared with the first electronic eye, and then they said, oh, you need to remove this and take a picture without this electronic device. So I wrote back to them and explained to them how I felt, that I felt that this had become a part of my body, an extension of my senses, and that it should be included as part of my image. And after some weeks, they replied saying, no, that's not happening. Just please remove this and take it. And then I just wrote back to them and explained it a bit better, and then they just said no again. And they said, could we have a letter from your doctor? I think they thought maybe I had some mental problems. So my doctor wrote a letter to them explaining that no, he's okay, but he feels that this device has become an extension of his senses. He's wearing it 24 hours a day. You should allow him to have it in his passport for that. And after months of letters, they allowed me finally to have the picture, so now I can actually travel around the world without having a problem. So passport controls in airports must allow me through with the electronic eye, because it's part of my official image. Still, though, I have many problems. There's a lot of interrogation in airports. They ask me lots of questions. I actually give my first conference in airports. I've already given one in Kansas Airport. Well, you have to explain and explain. And then also allows me in shops, because sometimes there's shops that don't allow me in because they think that I'm doing something illegal, or cinemas, they think that I'm filming the film, or that I might do some kind of, I'm doing some kind of illegal thing. So there's so much, so many situations where people just don't accept other people that use technology as part of the body. Having it on the passport helps in many situations. Now, there was a point when I was able to perceive color just like my friends, actually even better because it was more precise. But I realized that there's many, many more colors around us that we cannot perceive. And I realized that I could actually continue extending my color perception through the electronic eye. So I didn't see why I should stop with human visual perception. So I decided to continue extending my color perception, and I added near infrared and near ultraviolet. So now I can actually perceive more colors than my friends, because I can actually know if there's infrared in a room. So if I go into a room and I hear infrared, it means that there's movement detectors, and many shops and banks have them. So if I go to a bank and I don't hear infrared, it means that there's no alarms usually, so you can actually go through. And then near ultraviolet means that you know if there's ultraviolet, which is a dangerous color. It's a color that can actually damage our skin. So if I hear ultraviolet, it means it's not a very good day to sunbathe. So I want to just continue extending my color perception, because there's many, many more colors after that. And so that, since then, I changed the color to sound scale, and now I have a pure color to sound scale, and then a human vision color to sound scale. The human one goes from red to red, whereas the pure one goes from infrared to ultraviolet now. So my life has changed in many ways since I hear color. One of the biggest changes is the way I dress, because before I used to dress in a way that it looked good, but now I dress in a way that it sounds good. So so if I want to wear a major chord, I would dress like this. So today I'm actually wearing C major. It's a very harmonic combination. And if I want to wear a minor chord, I would dress more like this. So I would dress like this to a funeral, for example, because that would suit the minor chord. And then you can actually wear a specific song. So you can actually combine the colors of your clothes. You can design your own clothes in a way that it sounds as a specific song, so you could wear any song. Now we've started creating a collection, like many ties. For example, this tie sounds like this. So it's a very happy tie, so I would wear it if I go partying or something. Also, the way I perceive food has changed a lot, because before food was just flavor and texture, but now it's also sound, so I can actually now compose music with food, especially with salads, because there's many colors in salads. So depending on how I distribute the food on a plate, I can eat my favorite song as well. So we are designing this menu, this sonochromatic menu, where then you can go to a restaurant and ask for some Mozart as first dish, and then some, I don't know, some Lady Gaga desserts as well. So you can choose your food by the way it sounds, not by how it tastes. Here's an example of how things sound. So you can actually compose music by looking at objects. Now I can just look at different objects and create music or food. And I give color concerts with this. I just put colors in front of me and then I create music. You can also do it with faces. So my experience of walking around a supermarket has changed completely, because now it's just like walking into a nightclub, because there's so many colors. Milk is silent. So white elements and black elements are completely silent. And yeah, this is also the way I perceive art museums has changed, because now I can go to an art museum and I can listen to a Picasso, I can listen to an Andy Warhol. So painters have become composers, and I can differentiate art just by listening to the colors. This is, for example, the sound of the scream. So I can actually hear the scream, and it sounds very disturbing because it has many microtones. These are all the frequencies. Andy Warhol is usually very loud because it's very saturated, so you can hear an Andy Warhol from very far away. And then old paintings or more classical paintings sound much less because they're usually less saturated. Like this one, it doesn't sound much. So also the way I perceive people has changed, because, for example, beauty doesn't only depend on the shape of someone's face, it also depends on how the face sounds. So someone might look very beautiful but sound very bad, or it might happen the other way around. So someone you might not expect might sound very, very good. And I like just to listen to people's faces, and I get close. This is time I listened to Prince Charles' face. He was a bit scared here. I think he thought I was gonna do something bad. And, but I just get close to people's face, and then instead of drawing their face, I just write down the sound of their eyes, the sound of the lips, the sound of the skin, and the sound of the hair. And from those sounds, I create this sound portrait. So then I send them an MP3 of their face so that they can hear themselves. And each face sounds different. And yeah, here. And sometimes even the eyes don't sound the same. They say they have brown eyes, but then when you listen to both eyes, you can hear subtle differences. And I will play one of these faces. Okay, this is an example of the sound of a face. And this creates a specific chord, and then each color is a specific microtone. Now the interesting thing is that I've never heard two people sound exactly the same, so even twins sound different. And the other thing is that I thought that we were black and white, but it's actually not true. I realized that the people that say that they are black, they're not actually black. They're actually very, very dark orange. And people that say they're white, they're not actually white. They're very, very light orange as well. So we actually all share exactly the same hue, but what makes it different is just the light. So with my eyes shut, I can't really tell the difference between someone that thinks it's black and someone that thinks is white, because I will hear F sharp hue, and then when I open my eyes, I see the light, if it's very dark or very light. So we're not black and white, we are all orange. Another thing that we're not is that one of the things I learned is that cities are gray, and that's when I ask people, what's the color of your city? And most people just say gray, but then I wanted to make sure this was right, so I just started this project of going around Europe, and we went to more than 30 countries, going to each capital, and then what I did in each capital was just to walk around the streets, just scanning the colors, and until I could detect a dominant hue for each city. And I realized that there's no gray, almost no gray. It's really almost impossible to detect gray in cities, because what people call gray are just very unsaturated blues or unsaturated yellows or unsaturated browns, but they're never purely gray. There's never gray. So I just tried to detect what the dominant colors were in each city, and I found out that each city has completely different dominant colors. Like Lisbon, for example, is light yellow and turquoise, whereas Madrid, which is the next capital, is just completely different. It's amber and terracotta. And Monaco, for example, is very salmon. It has the hue of salmon and then also a type of blue. London is very, very red because it has lots of bricks, and most of the urban there's lots of red in London. And yeah, I wanted to maybe detect the dominant color of Kansas, but I haven't been here enough time to scan the dominant color. But maybe when I'm on the plane tomorrow, I'll try to scan the city just to detect. So after some months of hearing color, there was a secondary effect that we were not expecting, which is the fact that when I hear sounds, I also perceive color. It started happening with the telephone line, because the telephone line sounds green, but my telephone wasn't green. And this started to happen with more and more things. I went to a concert, and then the singer was singing different notes, and I started to perceive different colors whenever she was singing different notes. And then when I listened to the radio, I also perceived color, because music has different notes which relate to different colors. It started to happen with everything that I hear also gives me color perception. So I started to paint music, and these are the first 300 notes of Mozart's Queen of the Night. So it's just transposing what I hear to what I hear on the canvas. So if I hear a note, I can just try to find the same note on the paint and then put it on the canvas. So I'm painting music, and then I can afterwards hear the music on the canvas. So this is actually music for me, and this is Mozart's Queen of the Night, from the first note in the middle to one of the last ones here at the back. And this is Baby Baby by Justin Bieber, so transposed into color, which it's strange because it's quite pink. So it's actually, many people think that his music is quite pink, and actually when you transpose it, it is. So also, people's voice can be transposed into color, and when I listen to people speak, if you speak in F sharp, then this corresponds to a specific color. If you speak more in C, then that's a different color. So I started to transpose people's speeches into color. And these are two speeches. The one on the left is Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream, which is very blue, violet, and pink, because he used to talk between C and E, whereas the other one is Hitler, and Hitler used very different frequencies in a very small amount of time, so this gives very different colors in a very short space. Well, in 2010, during those years, I received many emails and interest from people that also wanted to extend their senses. So that's why in 2010 I decided to create the Cyborg Foundation with Moon Ribas, and the aim is basically to help other people extend their senses by applying technology to the body, also promote cyborgism as an art movement and as a social movement, and also to defend cyborg rights, because cyborgs also have the right to appear in passports and also to go into places. So it's just having the same rights as other people. Now we also have done different projects. One of them, the first one was actually the internal radar, which was basically perceiving movement through vibrations. So Moon studies movement, so she wanted to detect the exact speed of people moving in front of her. So we created these earrings that vibrate whenever there's movement in front of her. So she wears two, so if there's a movement going very fast, the vibration between ear and ear will be maybe half of a quarter of a second, and then if it's slow movement, it will be, the interval will be larger. So she learned the intervals and what it related to speed, so that she could actually tell if someone was walking at 3 kilometers per hour or 6. And after some months, she was able to differentiate speed. Also, it allowed her to detect movement with her eyes shut. She didn't have to look, and it gave her a completely different perception of movement. Also, she appears on her passport with the earrings, so she was able to travel with them. The interesting thing about the earrings is that when you could also turn them around, and then this would allow you to perceive movement behind you, which is something not human. Humans have all the senses facing to the front, so just having this small difference of perceiving what's behind made a huge difference to her perception of the surroundings, because we have like half of our body is dead. We don't perceive much what's happening behind. So if you have this small sensor behind it, this allows you to detect if someone is approaching you from behind, and then you know if it's approaching from the left or from the right. It can also be used for football players or soccer players, because then you have a better sense of who's behind you. So it can help also sports people. Then we also created the eyeborg, which is just like this, but the other way around. Instead of hearing color, it allows you to visualize color. So it's a small screen and a microphone. So if someone is talking in F, then you see the color orange. And then if there's music, then you can visualize the colors of the frequencies of sound. So it could be used for deaf people or people that want to experience the sound of color. So it's detecting the dominant sound frequency and transposing it up 40 octaves until it becomes color. And also you can just do it with voice, so if someone speaks, you can
I have a
visualize
dream
the dominant color of someone's
that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the...
and so on. Also, we've created electronic eyes for blind people, so it has a completely different effect. For example, this electronic eye applied to someone that is blind but was able to see color when he or she was a child can actually have an effect of being able to memorize, to revisualize the colors that they remember. So if they remember the color blue and they hear blue, they can actually visualize the color, which has a different effect. They can actually see the colors in front of them because they have them in their memory. Also, we've created also other electronic eyes that don't detect color, but other things like shapes or distances. And also, we're developing one that will allow you to hear written words, so that instead of translating a menu into Braille, you can just use an electronic eye and hear the menu instead of having it translated. We also developed the eyeborg app, which is for free, and it's available on Android now, and then you can download it, and then you can hear the colors around you with your mobile phone. So people that might not want to implant an electronic eye, they can just use the telephone. Also, we have a friend that had a finger missing, and he came to the foundation and said, do you think we could I could have some kind of cybernetic extension? So we talked to him and we asked him, what would you like to have? Because he had this free space. And we asked some questions. Do you smoke? Because then you could just have a lighter in your hand. Because he doesn't smoke, so that wasn't. Now we thought maybe you would like to have the sense of perfect, knowing the exact weight of things, that you could hold something and then you could perceive, or you could read the exact weight of objects. This would allow you to know the weight of things, but this didn't really interest him. So we thought of what would, he was actually studying multimedia and photography, so we thought, well, the best thing would be to just have a camera in your arm, so that you don't need to take your iPhone to take pictures. You can just take pictures with your own hand. So we just applied this small finger with a small camera inside. So now he can actually take pictures with his own hand and film. But the aim is to allow him to have an extra sense. This is just allowing him to have some extra ability. But the aim is that this camera will actually give him some information and give him some feedback to his own hand. So it's still in process. Now he's just enjoying the fact of taking pictures, but the aim is just to have an extra sense. Also, we are developing the internal compass, which is a small compass that vibrates whenever you face north. So it will be implanted at the bottom of a leg, and then whenever this person faces north, he or she will feel a vibration, so she will have a perfect sense of orientation. So if she goes out at night and she gets lost, she will at least know where the north is. And also if you go to a new city or a new space, she'll have a new sense of orientation, which can help in many ways. Also, something that has no electronics and no cybernetics, but that I really want to have is just, because I have some teeth missing, and I would like to replace them with something else, not just an artificial teeth. So we are designing these teeth that have light, so that in case of total darkness or in emergency, I can just click my mouth and I can open my mouth and I have some light. So it's very simple technology that can allow us to have extra things. Also, the last sense that we've developed is the seismic sense. Moon has been wearing it since February, and it's attached to the arm, and it vibrates whenever there's an earthquake in the world. So now she's in Barcelona, and if there's an earthquake now in California, she will feel a small vibration, and depending on the Richter scale, the vibration is higher or lower. So it gives her a connection with the movement of the Earth. It's actually it's connected to online seismographs, so it can detect earthquakes from wherever there's these online seismographs. And then the aim is that she will be able to feel this pattern, and it might develop into something that we still don't know, but she might be able to start feeling when the next one will be if she wears it for a long period of time. Also, she uses it as a performance as well. She is a dancer, so her performance is that she doesn't dance until there's an earthquake. So people go to the performance and then just wait, and the agreement is that if there's no earthquake, then she won't dance. But usually there's an earthquake every 8 to 10 minutes, so she usually dances a lot, and it's a live, always interesting because it's a live connection with the Earth. Now, just to end, I think most of these senses that I've just talked about are actually very, very natural senses. Many people think that applying these senses is a very unnatural thing to do, or very unhuman. But I believe that applying technology to humans is extremely human, because technology is a human creation, and applying human creations to humans is very human. Also, I think that it's actually applying technology to the body doesn't actually make us more like a machine, but it can actually help us become more like other animals, in the fact that, in my case, having an antenna doesn't make me feel closer to robots. It makes me feel closer to insects that have antennas. It also, the fact of hearing through bone conduction makes me feel closer to dolphins, because dolphins can also hear through bone conduction. And perceiving ultraviolet or infrared is very normal. There's many insects and animals that can perceive these colors. So I feel that all these senses are very natural, and that we could also actually all apply them to humans and In this way, we would be able to perceive nature and reality in a better way. The fact that the other sense is the one perceiving where the north is also a sense that exists, like sharks, they can detect the electromagnetic fields, and this allows them to know where the north is. Having internal light is also something that some fish have in the bottom of the ocean. If they're in total darkness, they have light, so they can produce light. So I think that we can actually learn a lot from animal senses, and we can use cybernetics to extend human senses, because it is through the senses that we gain knowledge. So the more senses we have, the more knowledge we'll have about reality. So I encourage you to think about which senses you'd like to extend and to experiment the union between your body and technology, because it could have very interesting results. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll just answer any of your questions. Thank you.
If you have a question, raise your hand. I'll come by with the microphone. We want to get the audio on the video. We'll start up front.
Do you have what's commonly called perfect pitch?
I have it within that octave and with that timbre. So I didn't have it before, and I don't have it with all the sounds, but I have perfect pitch within this range, yeah.
I'm slow here. Next question over here.
Have you thought about making an independent movie using your sonochromes as the soundtrack?
Yeah, because the good thing about hearing color is that you don't need to create music for a film, because the film already has music. Because if it's a color movie, then the images already have sound. So yes, I'm actually collaborating now with a film director that wants to have this sound of the colors of the film, so I'm working with it now.
Two questions related. Can you, if you're listening to Mozart, is there a difference between listening and seeing? When I hear phi, whatever it is, and I see phi, where phi is a color, are those synonymous? Are they identical? Next question, which maybe says no, can you listen to Mozart and not hear color?
No, I cannot separate one thing with another. And yes, it's the same. When I hear F, I perceive the same color as with this, yeah.
You talked about, for instance, the food and making it sound nice, as it were. But it seems to me that when you, depending on what you look at, the order that you choose to look at things, you're going to hear the sound differently than if you looked at them in a different order. So how do you make those choices in terms of what order to look at things?
Yeah, you can look at it. I usually do it like, well, in the case of music, from the center out, but with plates or food, it would be like a circle starting from there. But it could be done in any order, yeah, because it depends on how you. So if I listen it in the other way around, it would be completely different music, yeah.
Hi. I don't know if you could relate your expanded capacity to the native human condition of synesthesia, whereby individuals experience colors naturally as sounds or vice versa.
Well, I think the main difference between synesthesia and my case is that I never see color, so I perceive color. But to me, color perception is not visual, so I call it sonochromatism to differentiate it from synesthesia. But from the outside, this is pure synesthesia from people that perceive color. But in my case, it would be, yeah, something else or a type of synesthesia. That's why I called it sonochromatism. And then I tried to find people with synesthesia to see if there was a relation, but there wasn't. So each person that has this natural relationship between color and sound, each case is different, so they relate different sounds to different colors. So, yeah.
I wonder
what your doctor thinks about putting a turbine in a blood vessel to get power. Have you considered something like using the motion of limbs and storing the energy in a capacitor? And by the way, how much power is required to run the device?
I haven't mentioned this to my doctor yet, so otherwise maybe he would stop the project. So no, it doesn't need much energy, and the longer I wait, the less energy it will need, because it will be smaller and smaller. So yeah, I think it's not using the blood energy would be the best option, but it might be the most difficult option. So maybe before using blood energy, I might use just the kinetic energy, just my own movement, because that's the easiest. And then maybe afterwards, just using the energy of the brain, because there's also, it could be charged when I sleep, because when we sleep, we create a lot of energy here that could be transferred to energy to the chip. So I might use other things before blood. Yeah.
Neil, back here in the back.
Severe directional confusion is often present in syndromes like autism and dyslexia. And so the issue you had with the compass would have just mass profitability, I think, with helping children at a very young age have that either attached in some way so that they could be integrating direction at a very early age that would help them improve their syndrome. Have you explored that kind of opportunity?
No. No, I haven't. No, but I think not only them, but all of us would make a big difference in the way we perceive space, I think. And yeah, many of these sensory extensions can help people that have less senses, but also people that have all the senses, because it just, yeah, when we compare humans with other animal species, we realize that humans have have very, very low perception of reality, and through these extensions we can perceive better. Yeah, I never thought of these cases, but yeah.
Neil, on your left up front here.
What is the diameter of the focus of your vision of color, and have you experimented with chords at all?
Yeah, so this gives me the dominant color in front of me, because I chose to perceive color in that way, but you could have an eye tracker there that would detect my eye, and then it would change depending on the color I would look at. So you could have this, or you could just divide the sensor in half, so you could have stereo vision, or even into 4, so you could have chords. So it all depends on how you want to perceive color, and then there's different options, I guess.
I'm a student here at UMKC, studying biomechanical engineering, and I was wondering, like, who does the research that develops the extrasensory mechanics that you work with, and also how, like, because that's something that I take a lot of interest in, and I was wondering how in the future I might maybe contact them or get involved somehow.
So each project is with a specific team, and then we collaborate a lot with students, final year students that need to create a project, and then they come to the Cyber Foundation, and then we create a project from this. So the best is always students, and very, very young, also some also 12, 13, 14-year-old children that have developed this sense of technology, that they can create things at home, and then they are interested in developing technology. So it's usually this, and then each team has a specific aim, and then it has different people. It can have from doctors to artists and technicians. So it's.
When you gave us the demonstration of the opera singer and her voice converting to colors on the screen, I noticed that you would turn your head towards the screen periodically, and I'm wondering, what was that like? How did it change when you turned towards the screen because of the bone conduction system?
Yeah, well, I was perceiving sine waves and the opera singer, so I had a double concert. Yeah, and it's, well, yeah, it's the same feeling, but I just have I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, I was perceiving color like normal color, and then when it's difficult to, so it's like having, the difference was just the timbre, I guess, the timbre of the sound, but not the color. The color would be the same, yeah.
Neil, about midway back on your left.
Thanks, Neil. Hearing is a sense that goes to the brain, and hard of hearing children or children with cochlear ear implants try and magnetize or magnify or whatever. It would seem like there might be another operation or another opportunity there to filter those senses going to the brain in a similar way. Have you done anything or looked at that in any way?
Well, yeah, people that are, so there's like two different types of deafness, I guess. People that are completely deaf, like the inner ear is different from the ones that are just deaf from the outer part of the ear. So bone conduction can be used for deaf people that are only deaf in the outer ear. So bone conduction is actually used for that. And people that are completely deaf, then they could use the sound to color system to perceive pitch, because they can they might be able to perceive sound, or through they might be able to perceive people's voice or sound by vibrations or by reading lips, but there is no way of perceiving pitch, and the system that transposes color, pitch to color would help perceiving this extra property of sound, I guess.
Anil, back here towards the back on your left, and due to the time, this will have to be the last question.
I noticed in your examples of research you were doing, there wasn't an example of a cyborg experimenting with olfaction receptors with smell, and it seems like there'd be a lot of ground there. Especially, I'm interested in using that sense of smell to perceive what microorganisms might be telling us. Was that just not in the presentation? Are there people experimenting with smell?
Yeah, we've tried doing smell projects, but it's actually the most difficult sense. So I didn't show anything because we really don't have much. So, but we are trying to develop a very, very basic smell detector that will just vibrate whenever there's a dangerous smell, because this is easiest. So if it detects gas or it detects some kind of toxic smell, it would vibrate just to help the many, many, many people that have no sense of smell. And but transforming smell into another sense is really complex, because it's one of the most complex senses. And but yeah, there's we receive lots of emails of people interested in extending their sense of smell, because many don't have it. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Neil.
Okay.
I know there were a few hands up. We didn't get to everyone, but I think Neil's going to stick around for a couple minutes if you want to chat with him. And please don't forget about our third and final lecture in our color series. November 21st, Dr. Stephen Palmer from UC Berkeley will give a lecture on the aesthetic preference of colors, why we like the colors that we do. So thank you for attending tonight's lecture, and good night.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone work with touch? Because all the other senses are from a distance.